Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Babatunde-Ikotun. If this is your first time stopping by, I'd like to say a warm welcome to you. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome. I'm glad you're here. So by topic of today, I'm going to be sharing 5 things that you should do if you find out that you're pregnant in Canada. And you may be wondering, Bibi, why are you sharing this? I remember when I got pregnant with my daughter, it was so confusing trying to navigate a new system as a new Canadian. So this will probably be relatable to you if you're a new Canadian trying to build your life in Canada and adult in Canada. So let's get right into it. Number 1, you need to try to find a midwife ASAP. Midwives are amazing compared to OB. And for context, I had both midwives and OB. Typically in Ontario, government pays for either or, so you can't have a midwife and an OB. But I started with a midwife, and eventually when I did my sugar testing for gestational diabetes, I was positive for gestational diabetes. So since that's a health condition, my midwives were not able to continue caring for me, so they transferred me to an OB. And let me tell you, the experience from having a midwife to having an OB is day and night. When I had my midwife appointment, it was like I was meeting with my big sisters, like my moms, my community. I had 3 women that were caring for me, so I'll meet with either one of them at any point in time. It was questions, it was banter, it was advice. Like, I felt free to ask questions. But when I started seeing my OB, it was literally a 5-minute appointment. How are you? Fine. Everything okay? Good. Let's check the baby. Okay. See you next time. Bye. So I naturally advise women to go towards OB because of that joint care, that familiar care, that warmth, that love. It was out of the world for me. But I should put the caveat. So if you have underlying health situation, let's say if you had a baby before and that baby was delivered through C-section, or you have different health issues, you might not be admitted by an OB, whether by a midwife, but you would have to seek an OB. But if you don't have anyone or any of those things, please go find a midwife, and you need to find them quickly. A lot of people are having babies these days, and a lot of midwives are getting full really quickly. I remember a friend of mine, she tried to find the same midwife that helped her with her first baby, but they were so booked. So it's like, as soon as you do that test, find out you're pregnant, there's no need waiting. Just look for the OB and the midwives in your area. Make sure you check their Google reviews, if they have social media, things like that. And yeah, they always have like intake form, intake interviews. So try to get the vibe. If it works for you, go on and sign on. If not, good. Because if you don't start seeing a midwife, because a midwife can see you as soon as you get pregnant till you deliver. OBs typically don't see you after, I believe, the first trimester. Because there's really no reason to see. Many of them, they just wait till the pregnancy is viable, which is a very morbid thing to think about. But midwives can see you at any point in your pregnancy, so I advise to get started and find a midwife. The second thing I would tell you to start doing is start putting your finances in order. Let me tell you, as someone that recently went through getting paid EI money, and now I'm back to work, and oh my goodness, it's day and night. And you know, when you are earning income and you don't really know how much of a disposable income you have until you are on EI. Yeah, that was my reality. Like, I was on EI, and each time I got paid, see, let me preface this by saying that I'm not ungrateful. I know many women in the world would kill to be able to be home with their children and have income while at it. So I say kudos to the Canadian government for having policies to take care of mothers or families and have some kind of income. But if you're a high earner and you go from that to EI, it's going to be a struggle. EI cannot even pay some people's rent. And I'm talking about rent internal. Like my friend, our rent is 2,500, and ain't nobody getting 2,500 a month from EI, because the max is 650 by week. So if you're getting the max, that's how much. It's not up to your monthly rent. So you have to start putting your finances in check. So that's budgeting. That is saving disposable income. All your Uber Eats, your dining out, you have to turn it down. You have to start preparing a budget and saying, in fact, my advice would be start creating a budget for those months you're going to be away from work, and say, okay, this is an estimated amount I'll get from EI. You're lucky if your employer tops up, which is another thing I'll talk about. So if you're married and you plan to have children, sometime in the future, be very strategic about the kinds of job you get. I work in the charitable sector, and not a lot of charities top up EI money. But if you're in tech, if you're in finance, if you're in any other career field, start looking for jobs that might top up is part and parcel of the benefits and compensation package, because you're gonna need that. So for those that are getting top up, you don't even need this conversation about finances, because your company is going to top up whatever EI is paying you to match your regular pay. So I'm very happy for you. But if you're not in that case, that you can find a different job or find a top up, this is where you have to build a budget and say, okay, this is the estimated amount I'll be getting from EI. This is the amount of money you and your husband have to start putting away, so that way your standard of living doesn't drop. And even if it's not about your standard of living dropping, but so that you don't accumulate so much debt, so much credit card debt and line of credit debt when you are on mat leave. You got to be smart, because another thing is this decision also impacts when you're going back to work. Some people have to go back to work because it's not financially reasonable for them to be at home and not earning good money. So that means, are you going to go back to work after 6 months? If you go back to work after 6 months, that also means that you have to have money to pay for daycare, and daycare isn't cheap. Daycare is north of $1,000 for most people in the GTA, so it's not cheap. So if you're going back to work, you also know that now we have to figure out daycare. So financial planning is so key. You're not having a baby somewhere like in Nigeria where you will wing it. There's really no winging it here. Bills have to be paid every month. You have your phone bills, your utilities. You know you can't live without utilities, either in the winter when the weather is cold or in the summer when it's really hot. You need your air, you need your internet, you need all these basic things. I'm not even talking about luxuries. So you need to have a plan. You need to start putting money away. Utilize your TFSA, utilize different high yield savings account, have a strategy. So when you finally are on mat leave, you won't be stressing about money, and you'll just be able to have that decent quality life, and standard of living would not really drop. Because the reality is that if you are watching this and you don't live in Canada, you'll be like, oh, but your husbands are working. Well, to be fair, in Canada, there are some single income families, but more than usual, especially amongst the immigrants and newcomer communities, both husband and wife have to work. If husband tries to carry it on alone, even if he's earning 200K, like there's a standard of living, right? It might not be enough. So husband and wife work and contribute to the house. So it might not be equal. It might be depending on the percentage. But you hardly find any newcomer family that the husband is the only one working and the wife's income means nothing. So I'm just putting that as a caveat for anyone that may not relate to the Canadian reality, which leads me to the next point. The day you find out you're pregnant, start finding daycares in your neighborhood. So what I did was I found daycares around me, right? It started, okay, the ones that are 5 minutes away, because I want something that I can walk in the summer, take my stroller, go pick my kid up. Then 5, 10, 15 minutes away, I had a conversation with myself. What is the max minutes of drive that you want to do for daycare? And the max was 15 minutes one way. I didn't want anything more than 15 minutes to go and drop and pick up my kid, because I didn't want it to be too disruptive to my schedule. So I'm thinking, okay, max 35 minutes, I've picked up my kid. For some people, they'll be like, oh, that's too much. Therefore, to be walking distance. But then again, depends on demand, right? So what I did was write down their list, get their phone number, and I started calling. Some of them have a website. I called, I put the date I called, and most of them were like, oh, we'll just put you on the wait list, we'll put you on the wait list. So eventually I was on the wait list from when I was 5 months pregnant. And I mean, there was no stop. They will ask when is your due date, you give them your due month, they'll put baby, the surname on their list, and they'll start sending you emails. In fact, the daycare that Buttercup is going to, I'd called them and like, oh, how come I've never heard about your wait list? They said they've never received my call before. And I was so heartbroken. So thank God for receipt. I pulled out my receipt. I pulled out the form that I had created. I told them I called you on this date. I spoke to this person and they said they're going to put my name down. And the person was like, oh, based on these details you are giving, that means you really called us. When did you call? I told her the date I called. She's like, okay, fine, we'll bump you up to the date of that time. And then subsequently, they reached out when Buttercup was around 6 months old. That was when we had the tour, we did anything. But my husband and I were like, no, she's still too little to go to daycare. And quite frankly, that was when I was back to work and we had not really recovered financially to start putting that kind of money down for daycare. So we actually said no to that spot and told them to put us back on the wait list, which was very, very risky. Like, I actually had friends and family members, they were like, okay, how much do you guys need? If it's only the financial issue, we can loan you the money, because they know how hard it is to get into daycare, especially in the GTA. But we're like, no, even aside from the money aspect, we're not just ready to let our little girl go to daycare. She's 6 months. We saw the class. She's the only one. She couldn't even crawl then. She was just sitting. All the other kids were moving and walking, and we felt like it might be too much. So we decided to hold her back, and she didn't start daycare until 10 months. So even after that, the daycare, what they do, the daycare we ended up choosing, what they do is that every time there's an open spot in the infant class, which was the class we wanted Buttercup to join, they will send an email. So based on how fast you respond to the email, that's how you would be on the response sheet. So subsequently, I responded to one that coincided with when she was around 10 months, and since we had done the tour, I'd already paid the application fee, I paid the deposit fee, and when she started. So all of that really, really worked out. And I'm saying this as a big deal because I have people that their kids did not start daycare until about 15 months, because the competition is actually very steep. And the reason why we got it is because sometimes people will come, like most of this daycare, you don't see their price list online. So until you meet them, they give you the price list. You're like, see this kind of money, so this is what people are paying for daycare, before you now be like, this thing is actually more expensive. Because quite frankly, before I had my kid in daycare, remember I was like, how much would daycare be? Last most expensive one would be maybe $700, and to my surprise, it was way more than that. And I was talking to my co-workers, they're like, yeah, they were paying like $1,400, $1,500 a month for daycare. I said, you know, just be watching them, oh my goodness. But it depends, right? If you do your research, if it's a high quality daycare, if you trust them, if your gut goes with them, and of course you pray about it, then you choose that daycare. But I realize most people don't know, so when they do the tour, they get the bill, they end up falling down on the wait list because they're like, we can't afford this. So that's why we were able to get a spot for Buttercup that soon. I think we I don't know if it's faith or just being doing a calculated risk for us to forfeit that spot at 6 months, because we didn't get another spot for her until she was about 10 months, which to me, I'm just like that we thank God for his grace. So daycare wait list, get on it, do as much tours as you can. Many of the daycares, they have open houses where you can just go talk to the teachers, learn more about their curriculum, get to know things, ask them questions that you care about, see how they interact with the kids and all of that. That would really help you get a good idea on if this is a good fit for you or not. The next thing I'll tell you to start getting really serious about is praying. If you're in the earlier side of your pregnancy, first trimester is hard, and second trimester is kind of like your honeymoon. So when you're in second trimester, you start feeling yourself, feeling sexy, feeling preggy, feeling like you start feeling yourself. By the time you enter third trimester, you're like, whew, this thing can be challenging. And I'm not saying it is like the worst thing that can ever happen to a woman. No, of course not, right? It's a beautiful journey, but it takes a lot. It takes a toll on you mentally, physically, emotionally, in every ramification you can think about. So I'm gonna say pray. I remember sometimes during my pregnancy, I could not even utter a word of prayer, but I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and I'll feel my husband's hand over my tummy, and it's just declaring words and praying. Or sometimes I'm sleeping and I'm hearing voices, and I just wake up and I can hear him praying, blasting in tongues in the living room while I'm sleeping. I'm like, oh God, thank you for making me marry a prayerful man, because sometimes it's just so hard to pray at that season. So what I did a lot of that time was journaling. I did a lot of prayer writing, prayer journaling, and I got this book, Praying Through Your Pregnancy. I'll put the link in my caption so you can grab it. So each week of your pregnancy to tell you specific things to pray about. And I thought it was pretty neat, because it'll tell you like, oh, this week your baby's forming its fingernails, or it's forming his legs. Then you can pray for the legs, pray that the legs will take the gospel to the corners of the earth and things like that, which I thought was really, really sweet and neat. But you gotta pray, sis. There are particular things I think I've posted on my Instagram stories before. There's specific things that I prayed about concerning my pregnancy, concerning my delivery especially. And the way it happened, it blew my mind. Like, I one specific prayer that I prayed, and this might be vulgar for some of you, but I prayed that during my delivery, It's not a nasty word, is it? Would be very elastic and stretched that I would not even have a tiny tear. And that was how it happened. I didn't have any tear. I didn't need an episiotomy. I didn't need anything. So let me tell you something. There's power in prayers. There's power in making declarations. There's power in distance. I prayed and it happened. I prayed for my baby. I prayed for her health. I prayed that she would not have any form of jaundice. I prayed everything and they all happened. So start taking that prayer very seriously. When you're pregnant, you're such a very... It's a combination of a vulnerable and also a very, very spiritual state, because something is forming in you, something is incubating in you. And something that I always meditated about when I was pregnant was about how in the Bible, Mary and our cousin, I've forgotten our cousin's name for the life of me now, when they greeted each other, like the baby leaped in their womb. There's just that kind of connectedness between moms and babies. So don't take advantage of it. I feel like many women should key into that spiritual aspect of it and just praying and declaring. And I read sometimes, I just go back and read my prayer journal when I was pregnant, and when I'm like telling God I'm tired, I'm exhausted, especially because I had gestational diabetes and it was a lot of needles. I was poking myself, prodding myself, stabbing myself, injecting myself. It was a lot mentally, and I was also tired. I had indigestion. There was just a lot that pregnancy does to your body. So you gotta stay prayed up, sis, because if you're not prayed up and you don't have people praying for you, if you're not surrounded by praying community, so I'm talking to your husband, your siblings, your parents, people that are connected to you, your girls, you would need their prayers. Like I had friends that reach out to me and say, "Baby, I was praying for you today concerning your pregnancy," and that would just give me so much strength to just keep going, because pregnancy can be hard. So stay prayed up. Last but not least, try to get on prenatals. For me, when I was pregnant, prenatals was so disgusting to me. Like I didn't use the regular one because I worked with a natural path, and there were like some natural, really good ones that she had suggested to me during my pregnancy. Even now that I'm like, she suggested this one for me. I'm not pregnant, actually. No one should think I'm pregnant. I'm not. She suggested this one to me for like women's health. So she always suggests like non-mainstream prenatals, like the ones that's natural as possible, that don't have too many chemicals going on, and fish oil. There were a lot of things that she suggested. I just ended up giving them out to a different friend of mine that was pregnant, that she could stomach it, and I ended up just going with rituals. And it was funny because I was cleaning my my cupboard. I had all my medications. I had like 3 packs of rituals unopened, expired, because yeah, let's just say it's God that made my baby, because it was by my using of prenatals. I don't know what my baby would have been. So I tried my best. No one should judge me. I tried my best, but it was just too disgusting to stomach down. But don't be like me. Push through it. If you need to put it in food, if you need to swallow it in water, try to take your prenatals, try to take your medicine. Before I forget, another thing you should do is start setting up your baby registry. So for me, I had a friend that was going to give me a ton of stuff, but she advised me to still set up the registry. So that way my friends and family, if they want to buy anything from me, they can buy from the registry. And if I need to return to get Amazon gift card, I can do that, because after the baby comes, there are a lot of things that you would need that you not necessarily put on your registry and you would have to buy. So start putting a registry together. As a new mom, you may feel like, oh, everything in the market is saying you should buy, you need to put on your registry. The answer is actually no. So reach out to the moms in your community. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm just one DM away to ask for my opinion about your registry, what you've put together, what I think is useful, what I think is not, and how to just navigate that. Start putting your registry together early and soon enough, so that way you can send it out to those that care about you. And I know for the Nigerians that come from a Nigerian culture, the concept of a registry is a kind of weird idea. It can be like you're begging people, but the truth is that you're not part of a new culture. You're not Canadian, and in Canada you register when you're pregnant, at least with your first baby. Second baby you don't register, because you just use everything you have for your first baby for your second baby, or you can just buy things brand new if you've given and donated the old baby things out. So it's completely normal for a Canadian mom to have a registry. In case if anyone is trying to give you grief for like, oh, why are you begging people to contribute to your life, where you know it's not you and your husband decide to have a baby, because I know people that don't have the North American context often thinks that. So this is a response to them. So I said all of that to say, if you have any additional advice for anyone that just found out they're pregnant and they live in Canada and they're new Canadians trying to navigate the system. So if you've watched my video up until this point, I would like you to leave a comment. Tell me if you learned something new, or if there's anything that I missed that you think a new mom, a newcomer in Canada should know. And yeah, let's have a conversation in the chat. Don't forget to hit the like button. And please, if you're watching this and you're not yet subscribed, join the Baby Lamore team. So next time, bye.